let's start with Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler. This was the U.S. title match. We had some stats in the daily update today, and I wrote the daily update, and I can't even remember what the stats were. But these guys have wrestled, I think it was 16 times on television or pay-per-view. I've actually got it right here. Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston have had 16 matches on television or pay-per-view since November of 2009. And for those of you that think you've seen Cena and Orton a million times, they've only had 3 matches on TV or pay-per-view since this same date in November of 2009. So that's a lot of matches for these two. They, they battled on SmackDown on like every TV show for like 2 months, it seemed, and they had some pay-per-view matches. They're back here. They know the deal. They had a good match. It wasn't a great match or anything like that, but it was a pretty damn good opener. I gave it 3.25 stars, and just a lot of stuff back and forth, and finally Vicky scratched, I guess she scratched Kofi's eyes behind the ref's back, and Dolph went to put the sleeper on, and Kofi actually collapsed as he jumped on his back, and Dolph still managed to pull it off, and Kofi was like reaching for the ropes, and Dolph kicked off the ropes to move him back towards the middle. Kofi went unconscious. The referee stopped the match, and 3.25 stars. It was a good match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're sort of good and bad to guys wrestling that much. The good is that they're very familiar and very comfortable with each other, and you can tell it when they work because they have very good timing and they work well together. The bad of it is that there's only so much that they can do. I mean, they've sort of done everything that they can, so it's difficult to sort of come up with variations of the same things over and over again. But I mean, they had a good match. I liked the ending. I thought that it was sort of cool with them pushing off the ropes to keep the hold locked in.
Now, maybe it's just me, but when I watched this show, I watched it and I thought, this it seems like Triple H woke up one day and there was a UFC pay-per-view on, and he watched it and he liked it, and now he wants to put some of this stuff into the show because we had a ref stoppage. When a submission, actually we had a guy passing out in a submission and the fight was stopped. We had a ref stopping a fight because a guy was too injured to continue. We had Jerry Lawler getting in the ring to do a post-fight interview with a man who won a championship. It was just like one thing after another on the show that I thought, okay, somebody somewhere had to watch something at some point to come up with all these ideas because it's too much of a coincidence they all happen on the same show.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of striking too. I don't know if all of those ideas were necessarily along those lines. But I think that certainly not all of them were a coincidence either.
We had and we'll talk more about the other one because I have some stuff to say about the Big Show finish, but we had a limo arrived, Truth got out, had the WWE title on his shoulder. I haven't seen SmackDown yet. Apparently he stole the belt from Cena on SmackDown. But and someone actually told me that SmackDown this week was basically just an extra 2 hours of Raw. So brand extension dead, but we all knew that anyway. So Eve went up to him and said, "I don't even think I know you anymore." And he said, "You're right. You don't know who I am. Nobody knows who I am." And he said he was going to dedicate his victory tonight to all the little Jimmies and all the little Jennies. And she was sad. So there you go. We had Todd, and this is Todd Grisham, not Todd Martin, wanted to know if Miz had what it took to beat Alex Riley. He's interviewing Miz. And Miz said, "I cannot believe that you think my career has fallen so much in the last month that you're now asking me if I can beat Alex Riley." And it's a fair question at this point, to be honest with you, as we found out later in the match as well. And said Riley was nothing without him. All Riley did was carry his briefcase around and his belt, and after tonight he was going to be someone else's bag carrier. And it was a good promo. It was fine. Miz and Riley had a interesting match. It was very obvious that Riley was going over because Miz attacked him right at the bell and just like beat on him the entire time. He beat on him. Riley kicked out of everything. Miz kept beating him up. I was actually watching it going, if Miz beat people's ass like this more often in the last 6 months, he'd probably be a hell of a lot bigger star than he is right now, but that's another story entirely. So they end up outside, and Miz kind of flops over by the announcer's booth, and Cole is screaming at Riley about how Miz was like a father to him. He could not believe he was doing this to the Miz. And so Riley grabbed him and pulled him over the announce table, and Cole landed right on his head like a complete idiot. And Miz ended up jumping him from behind, threw him in the ring, grabbed the briefcase. The ref was going to take it away from him. Miz turned around. Riley booted him in the stomach. Implant DDT. Clean pin. Gotta say, I was not expecting a clean pin. And the place went nuts. It was a right finish. At least I thought so. What were your thoughts on the match and the finish?
I thought that as far as the match goes, I thought it was better than I expected. I thought it was well worked, and they did a good job of just doing sort of a basic match. As far as the bad of it was, I think it was a little bit disappointing in terms of the crowd heat. Riley has been getting pretty good reactions of late, and the crowd wasn't particularly hot throughout the night, but they didn't seem that into the match. And it's the second match of the card. Honestly, they seemed more into Kingston and Ziggler than these two, which I didn't think was necessarily a good sign. As far as the finish, I think it ultimately goes to what sort of their goals are. I mean, we talked about this before, but my impression from the beginning was that this feud was set up to get Miz back over after losing the title. But it seems like, based on the finish, that they see something in Riley and they want to elevate him to a next level. So if that is the goal they have with Riley, certainly Riley gets more from beating Miz than Miz gets from beating Riley. So if you want to elevate Riley, then this is definitely the right finish to do. And I've always liked Riley. I think he has sort of a heel charisma that's better for him than as a face. But I see potential in the guy, even if he's obviously pretty green in the ring.
When you talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I think maybe that was kind of the intention originally, maybe. But I think that maybe when Riley first attacked him, he got over really big when he beat him up. And then they brought him out the next week, and he beat him up again, and the people were even more into him. And, pretty soon his music hits, and, the people already know his music. They go nuts for him. He did the deal last week, and last week on Raw was when I really thought, okay, when he went out there and he did the Piper's Pit, and then he was the referee, and Miz punched him, and he fired up like a great babyface, and Piper rolled him up, and Riley counted the pin, and I saw the way the crowd reacted to it. I was like, they can't beat Riley on Sunday. I mean, they can, and I actually kind of thought that they were going to. But, to me, if I were in charge of the company and I saw that, it's almost like, okay, we're getting something with this guy. He may not be a main eventer. He may not be John Cena in 6 months or anything like that. But, here's a new face, and for some reason the people are really taken to him. And Miz can talk. He's probably always going to be fine. He may not be a John Cena level guy anyway, but he'll always be fine because he can talk. So, this guy's beating up Miz week after week after week. He's kind of made Miz kind of look like a geek losing all these times. And if Miz beats him on Sunday, to me, you end up kind of having two geeks. And at least if Riley beats Miz is going to be fine, and Riley can use the help, So I thought this was actually a great finish. And I'm still kind of like, okay, at any moment they're going to fuck this up, and they're going to just have Miz go out there and pin him clean, skull-crushing finale in 3 minutes or something like that. I still am worried that this is happening because that's always what they do. But so far, they're doing a great job with the guy.
And if basically what you outlined is the way they did it, great. I mean, that's you and Dave frequently have conversations about the idea of, and a lot of people do, about the idea of whether it's easier to do a work promotion or a shoot promotion. And honestly, in 2011, I kind of come down on the shoot side. Like I think there's just, that's sort of another discussion, but I think that there are a lot of intrinsic advantages to that. But the benefit of having a work promotion is that if you're, watching what's going on, you can pick up when the crowd's hot for something, and, you can adjust plans accordingly. You can call an audible, and you can, get over it however you want. I mean, you and Dave were talking about Alistair Overeem and the idea that, he was potentially ready to move to the next level and didn't deliver the sort of performance that would, bring that about. And with Riley, they can say, hey, we didn't have necessarily the greatest plans for him if this is what happened. But, he's getting over well, so let's run with it and see how it goes. I mean, that's one of the things that, that makes pro wrestling successful is being able to monitor audience reactions and do what the crowd wants to see.
We had a goofy skit with a fake Obama showing up with a bunch of indie guys dressed as a Secret Service, and Vicky walked up to sing Happy Birthday, and they hauled her off. It was wacky. Sergeant Slaughter was there as well. We had Big Show and Alberto Del Rio. No Ricardo Rodriguez, which made me sad. I probably am. Me and Disco Inferno are probably the only ones that wish he would have been out there in a full body cast doing his ring introductions, but I thought that would have been awesome. But they come out, and Big Show does another sprinting gig, and he attacks Alberto Del Rio in the aisle, and he's beating the crap out of him. And suddenly out comes Mark Henry, who apparently was laid out on SmackDown. Again, I didn't see that show yet, but he attacks Alberto, and he hoists him up pretty much with ease. gives him the world's strongest slam through the announcer's table, which was pretty fucking impressive, I'm not going to lie. And Alberto's just kind of pacing around in the ring. And the storyline was that because Big Show had attacked Alberto before the bell hadn't rung. So this wasn't a DQ. So after Mark Henry leaves, the referee, who, by the way, was watching all of this mayhem, starts counting out the Big Show. So the Big Show crawls and finally gets into the ring, and the match starts, and Big Show selling the leg, but they actually have a match for a little while. I thought it was going to be like an immediate finish, but they had a match. So, of course, Alberto works over the leg. This was like a pro wrestling version of Verdum's fight last night with Overeem, where you've got like a big guy, and the little guy keeps trying to take him down, and, it's not working. And there was even like a leg hold that was very similar to the one, in fact, that Overeem Overeem got caught in by Verdum at the end of that fight last night. But regardless, Show did not submit either, and finally his leg had been so badly injured that the referee said, "If you can't get up, I'm stopping this fight." And the Big Show could not get up, and the referee stopped the fight. And what did you think of this match and this finish? And then I'll give my thoughts here.
I thought the match itself was laid out well. They worked sort of a very logically sound wrestling match with, the idea that this guy had his leg hurt, and, the smaller guy keeps going after him, and the big guy sort of trying to fight him off and keep going before he can't do it anymore. So I thought the match was laid out well. I didn't really like the finish. I don't have anything against a ref stoppage. I think that's fine. And particularly in the context of the idea that one guy has sort of been beat up, and he can't really get up anymore, and, he's just sort of beat down and tired, and, the other guy can't quite get a pin on him, but he doesn't have anything left, so the ref stops it. I feel like that's fine, but I feel like if it's something to do with a limb, like it was in this case, where his leg's really badly hurt, why not just have him in a submission hold and have him refuse to submit, and the referee stops it there? I feel like that's basically the same idea, and it looks better, it comes across better, and it gets the guy who's winning a little bit over more, because he has, he's sort of on the offense, he has sort of the leg, as opposed to the guy just not being able to get up on his own. So, if it were up to me and I was going to do a stoppage finish, I'd just have the ref, when he had him in the knee bar, say, hey, Show isn't submitting, but I got to stop this fighter. He's going to do serious damage to the leg.
Yeah, my thought when it was over was, to me, it was just like, okay, we already saw one referee stoppage on this show earlier, and I understand. Obviously, you need to educate the audience as to what's going on here. If you're going to start doing these kind of finishes, it's got to start somewhere. Whenever you're educating the fans, they're going to hate it initially until they understand it. But to me, if you're going to start the education process, one finish like that on the show is fine. If they hadn't done this in the opening match with the choke sleeper finish, I think it would have been okay. But doing that in the opening match where the fans really aren't used to the referee stopping a match yet. It took a while for them to get into the tap and that sort of thing, and now they're trying to educate them to the referee being able to stop the fight when someone just passes out in a hold. But this was like another one even on top of that. Now the guy wasn't even in a hold. He just couldn't get to his feet, and so the referee it was too much for the fans on this evening. And I think they saw it as like a really cheap finish. And in reality, it was a pretty good finish in terms of clearly they didn't want to beat the Big Show. But clearly it's not the time for Alberto Del Rio to be losing. And, I actually talked about this on the show today as well with Semper Vivi. Obviously I think they're doing Alberto and Cena at SummerSlam. And so now is not the time for the guy to lose. But based on what they did to set this match up, which is Alberto running over the Big Show with a car, him and Ricardo. Big Show beat up Ricardo, but it was like, okay, well, they're not going to beat him now. I mean, the babyface is not going to get beat clean after this, especially the Big Show. And I thought this was a good way to do it, but not on this particular evening.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would probably just put over Del Rio anyway, because I don't really feel like you need to. He's the good guy that's sort of been put over, but I mean, you don't have to. The babyface doesn't always have to emerge victorious, particularly against a heel that's going to the main event. So. I probably would have just had Del Rio go over clean. One thing in terms of the crowd reaction, I thought that it actually, and I mean this is sort of neither here nor there as far as the points we were making, but I thought the crowd actually reacted relatively positively relative to other finishes of that nature. I mean, I remember seeing this finish before, and I don't remember whether it was in TNA or WWE, but I remember one in particular where they did, you know what, it might have been Matt Hardy and Edge. I could be wrong about that. But there was one finish where they essentially did this, where the referee just stopped it, and the crowd just reacted like this was, a complete screw job. And the crowd here, I mean, they weren't happy with it, but they didn't react really negatively to the finish. So I feel like the education process, and they've done these sorts of finishes here and there. I feel like the education process is underway. The people accept more now, and maybe it's the UFC influence even outside of the UFC. But I think people accept now the idea that if a guy can't continue and the referee stops it, that's a legitimate conclusion as opposed to a way out of somebody winning.
I should say that if I booked it, the Big Show would have lost. I mean, Alberto would have beaten him. I'm just saying from watching WWE for a long time and looking at how they booked this, that's the conclusion that I came to. They did not want the guy to lose. But, I mean, seriously, if the guy's going to be facing John Cena for the title, he should be beating the Big Show. But it's probably another month before he... I would guess there's probably another Truth Cena pay-per-view headliner before they actually get to that. I would guess that like the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is probably going to be Cena versus Truth again. That's just kind of how they do things, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think so too.
We had a horribly acted skit with Truth and a random geek. I think he was a cameraman backstage. Truth actually was very good, but the other guy was just horrendous. I don't even remember what this was about. I just remember writing how bad that guy was. Wade Barrett did a promo about Ezekiel Jackson in the IC title match and talked all the way down to the ring. And, he was doing the thing about how the U.S. system is all fucked up, and he didn't really get a lot of heat. I think these people have heard this stuff before. They knew what it was. There were some boos. There were some USA chants, but didn't really get over. And then they had the match. There were "We Want Ryder" chants. Which should actually tell you how quiet the crowd was early, because it was a vocal very minority doing this chant, and they got it on TV. There are a couple of USA chants as well, and I was sitting here before the match going, okay, if Wade's going to come out here and do this, why not just have Zeke come out and do like a pro-USA chant, or not a pro-USA chant, but just some sort of pro-USA speech, and then, you get the people into the match. And I guess he didn't do it because they wanted to do it afterwards, so... that was explained later. But anyway, they had a better match than you'd think. I thought Wade did a good job with him. Zeke did his body slams, probably way too fast again, and then got the torture rack on there for the submission. He had kicked out of the wasteland at one point and won the title. People popped big. And then he did the post-fight interview with Jerry Lawler, getting in the ring like Joe Rogan interview him. And he cut a better promo than I think everyone on the Strikeforce show last night except Josh Barnett. So there you go. And that's not high praise.
Yeah, I mean, apples and oranges. One bad promo versus another. I mean, I mentioned this at the onset, but I really thought this match was much better than I expected. Because I mean, Jackson in live match, I've just seen him have so many bad matches where he's just blowing stuff left and right, and everything here looked fine. I mean, it was, it wasn't, I wouldn't even say it was in the, top half of the matches for the evening, but it was a perfectly acceptable, fine match, that told, sort of a big man story. And, I give Barrett a lot of credit, and they did a good job of making Jackson look good here.
Todd, I got to ask you about this because I won't remember later. The Jorge Masvidal promo. I hated that promo. Am I the only one? When he came out there and said, I don't want to call anybody out here, but, if this, Gilbert fella, he's got nothing to do, I'm open for a title shot. That was like the worst fucking promo I've ever heard. What is wrong with these guys?
I thought it was very striking, too. What it reminded me of was, like, in junior high, where, like, you really don't, where you feel like, to be cool, you can't let on that you care about something, so you just want to maintain a distance from, showing emotion to sort of be cool. And that's sort of the way I felt Masvidal was like, where like he felt like he was too cool to act like he wanted a title shot. So you had to sort of, if they want to give me a shot, I'll do it. But it doesn't really matter for me, which you rarely see in a promo for a guy that's in line for a title shot. So I was very amused by it, but I certainly don't think it was terribly effective in making you want to see him challenge for the title.
I thought he came out there and somebody in the crowd just held up a giant sign that read like "The Underground is watching." And he's like, "Oh, I can't call anybody out now, for Christ's sake. That's not what us fighters do. We put everybody over. We talk about training and how much we respect our opponents." And it's just bullshit.
Come on. You leave the Underground alone.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Actually, I love the jiu-jitsu form on the Underground. But anyway, Santino, Beth, and Kelly did a skit with the fake Obama. And Santino tried to show him the Cobra, and he was immediately tackled and restrained. So there you go. We had Josh interviewing Punk about the match with Rey. Said he was a politician, but unlike the politicians in WWE, he was an honest man. In DC, I'm sorry. And probably WWE as well. And then we had the match. I thought it was a 3 3/4 star match. I thought it was very good. I think you liked it better than I did. But the point was, early on, all I could think is, and I shouldn't even complain because we got a great match, but it was like, why am I watching these guys fight again? In a match where it makes absolutely no difference which guy wins this match, Because I don't think if Punk wins, he's in line for a title match or anything like that. And same thing with Rey. Just like, two guys you can count on to have a good match or a great match, and they'll have the match. One guy will win. They'll do it again on Raw tomorrow. The other guy will win, and who cares? That's what I got out of it. But it was great, and they did all their usual spots with a bunch of twists on them. If you've watched their matches, you probably like this match even better because everything made sense. But Rey went for a 619. Punk caught him in mid-move, hoisted him up, GTS 1, 2, 3. And Booker T actually said it was one of the best matches he'd ever seen.
Booker also later claimed to have invented, I think, 5 different holds during the course of one match. So Booker was on a roll today.
Rare form.
As far as the match goes, I thought it was the best match of the night. I thought it was a really good match. And I think that in terms of the thing you're bringing up of it feeling like it didn't really matter who won one way or another, I think that was accentuated by the promo that Punk cut the other week, where it might have been this week. I think it was last week, though, where he said, "Hey, we've wrestled a million times, and Rey never beats me," and then Rey comes out there and beats him. And so it's like, you sort of point out that the guys are trading wins, and then they wrestle again, and it's just like, well, we've already established that Punk can beat Rey. We've already established that Rey can beat Punk. So it was, and it's not like it was sort of like a rubber match situation where they were sort of billing it. This is to, settle who's the best once and for all. It was just sort of another match, which I think, it detracts a little bit, but at the same time, it was just sort of a mid-card match designed to, be a good match in the middle of the show and not be something that was really one of the focal points of the show. So it doesn't necessarily need to have, a heightened sense of interest for every match.
We had Orton versus Christian for the world title, and this match was interesting because obviously, Orton was coming off a concussion. They played that up in the storyline, and the story of the match was that he was coming off a concussion, and he was groggy, and he wasn't moving very well, and he was probably still hurt. And I thought, first off, what kind of message is sending the youngsters? Second off, in real life, WWE would never let a guy, supposedly, work if he had a head injury. But in storyline, apparently it's totally fine. I was just completely perplexed by the story of this match. And it kind of played into it, but then it kind of didn't. I mean, you would think that, okay, if he's got a head injury, he's groggy, and he's off balance, he's going to lose. No, he won. Clean. But they had another great match. I also gave this 3 3/4 stars. Very, very good stuff. They traded all their usual near falls. They kicked out of stuff. And Christian finally hit the best spot of the match, actually, was Christian going for a spear. Orton did a leapfrog, went for the RKO. Christian shoved him off, hit a spear. Everybody bought it for the finish. Orton kicked out. And another awesome spot. And then finally, Christian does a leapfrog out of the corner. Orton hits the RKO out of nowhere for the pin. Key to the match, Christian's leg was under the bottom rope. The referee didn't see it. Christian made sure to point it out afterwards. And Randy Orton, the babyface, responded to this by laying him out with a belt shot afterwards, which quite frankly was poetic justice since the concussion was supposedly caused by a belt shot. But interesting psychology in this match here.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing about concussions that you did. And I was wondering if I was sort of being oversensitive about it. Because, I mean, as a wrestling fan, you're sort of used to the story where the babyface comes into a match with some sort of injury, and he's trying to work through the injury. I mean, you're sort of used to that. I mean, we've seen a million matches like that. But I agree with you. I feel it's different with a concussion where, you really shouldn't be sending the message that, and it's not like it's some gigantic deal where, like, it's really wrong of them to do it. But I feel like, in general, you shouldn't be sending a message that concussions are just another thing to work through, like, a hamstring injury or, like a sore leg. Because if you work through one of those injuries, the worst thing that can happen is, you suffer, some sort of bad tear and, you're out of commission for, 6 months or 9 months or something like that. But, with head injuries, you could do long-term serious damage. And there's a lot of people that aren't aware of that, particularly with WWE catering so much to a younger audience. That, if you I feel like you shouldn't be sending a message that if you've got a serious head injury, that you sort of work through it and, tough guys will keep going and they'll sort of, try to keep going even though they're groggy and they've got a serious head injury. So, I don't feel like there's something where, WWE deserves to be condemned by any means, but if I were them, I'd say, we're just not going to do that storyline. We're going to have the storyline where the babyface has a leg injury and an arm injury, and he goes to the pay-per-view and tries to work through it. But if a guy has a head injury, we're going to get across the idea that you need to be cleared by doctors and you need to be okay. And if the guy's okay in the match, then the head shouldn't be an issue. I agree with that. As far as the match goes, I thought it was a good match too. Maybe a little bit below the standard of some Christian's pay-per-view matches, but I mean that's certainly not a big criticism of it because Christian has awfully good pay-per-view matches, pretty much every time around.
And they did do an awful lot for a guy that was supposedly coming off I will say that the reports were that he got a concussion. And I'm almost positive he did get a concussion because I was told Friday, this was before he went in for his impact testing, I was told that they were rewriting the pay-per-view in case, I guess there was concern that he might not pass. So they were, I'll just say this. If he had not passed, he would not have worked this pay-per-view. I can say that with almost full certainty. Now, whether you believe that passing the impact test means that you're okay to work, that's something completely different. Dave and I talked about that yesterday. There are obviously people in the field that feel that impact testing is it's state of the art, it's very effective, the whole 9 yards. There are others that think it's bullshit. So regardless of what you think, the word that I got on Friday was that had he not passed that impact test, they would have done something for this pay-per-view, and he would not have been on the show. So that was that. But I mean, when I watched it and heard them just talking about the concussion and how he's working through the concussion, he's got all these symptoms. At first, I was just like, wait a second. There's no way he suffered a concussion. But it's pretty sure he did. It was just weird, just really weird. We had the Jack Swagger Evan Bourne match. More We Want Ryder chants. They were put in the death spot on the show. The women usually get this spot. And they did the best they could. They had a pretty damn good match. Fans weren't really into it. They got into it a bit at the end. Swagger tried a Dr. Bomb. Evan switched into a cradle. Swagger switched that into an ankle lock, and then Evan switched that into a cradle for the pin. Great finish. Great finish to the match.
Yeah, I thought it was just sort of there. It was a good match, but it was nothing special.
And then finally we had, first we had another... We had the ramp set up like a White House press room, and the fake Obama came out for his speech, and the crowd was chanting what and that sort of thing, and he put over Raw. Said he was not the anonymous GM because... Oh,
you know what? You missed... I think you missed earlier did you mention the Santino thing?
Oh, yeah, the Cobra.
Okay. Did you mention that, though?
Maybe I didn't. He was going to
Maybe
demonstrate...
I'm going crazy. I or I was concentrating on something else.
Maybe I'm going
that
crazy.
Was the most amusing president skit. If in fact you already did mention it, I'm just out to lunch.
Actually, I think I read it in my notes and then didn't read it because we were talking about something else. Basically, what happened? You want to go ahead and tell the skit? I
mean, it was just a little skit. I mean, Santino went up and he was going to teach Obama the Obama impersonator, the Cobra. So he lifts it up and he does the thing where he turns around his hand, and when he turned it towards Obama, all the secret security people freaked out and tackled Santino to the ground, and Santino was going, I was just trying to show him the hold. I wasn't going to do anything. I thought it was pretty amusing.
It was by far the best fake Obama skit on the show. That's no exaggeration. So this one here, he came out and put over Raw, talked about he was not the anonymous GN. If he was, he said we'd be seeing much less Michael Cole and a lot more Jim Ross. I was thinking deeply trying to figure this out. And I think, this is what I concluded. I know that Vince McMahon hates Obama. So I think that he assumes that everyone else hates Obama. And so by having Obama endorse Jim Ross, it's a subtle burial of Jim Ross. That's my psychological evaluation of this statement here.
I mean, maybe, but I mean, they had Booker T kissing up to Obama later. I mean, my interpretation was just that they wanted to get into the line where he went, "Oh, I love that fat guy." So I think that was just a setup for him to refer to Jim Ross as fat. That was my take on it.
Well, maybe both, in fact. Anyway, point was, so he said that, and then Booker got in the ring, called him to the ring, and said that the president had made history all over the world. First black president, won the Nobel Prize. But could he do a spin-a-rooney? And he went first, and then demanded to see a Barack O'Rooney. And I will say that this fake Obama, who, by the way, did you see the deal where he got yanked off the stage?
Someone said that was the same thing, but I think it was a different guy. But yeah, I had certainly heard that news story before I watched the pay-per-view.
I am almost 1,000% sure that it's the same guy. And the reason I say that is because Craig was looking up the story on his iPad as we were watching this show. And I didn't see the story, but there was a photo of the guy, and it was this guy. So unless it was a story from something else or some other incident or something like that, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive it was the same guy. And that happened yesterday. He was like yanked off the stage at some Republican deal or something like that. I didn't even read the story yet, but anyway.
Yeah, essentially he was doing a bunch of jokes, and it sounded like the problem was that he did some racial jokes about Obama, but he also was making fun of the Republicans. So I'm not sure which one of those was the big catalyst, but they essentially escorted him off the stage, and then some Republicans were apologizing for the deal afterwards. So I mean it's the same guy. That's what the essential deal was.
I see. So anyway, after getting yanked off the stage, he came back here tonight and did a Barack O'Rooney. And I will say that with the exception of Booker, obviously, and with the exception of John Morrison, I think this man did a better spin-a-rooney than anyone in the history of WWE.
I don't think so. I didn't think it was that good, honestly.
Well, who else has ever done a good one?
I don't remember the times they've done the spin-a-rooney, but I feel like this wasn't. I mean, it wasn't even really a spin-a-rooney. I mean, he sort of moved about a little bit, and then he breakdanced a little bit, and then he did the spin-a-rooney part towards the end. I don't know. I wouldn't give him that high of marks. I thought the segment overall was terrible.
Then we had Truth versus John Cena, and I gave this 2 stars. It might have been better than that. It just felt like...
Even worse than that.
It just felt like a Raw match that went long, and I did enjoy the finish. I thought the finish was awesome, and the finish was they did a bunch of stuff. Cena kicked out of Truth's finisher, which, by the way, apparently no one knows is Truth's finisher because there was like no reaction to him hitting it, and then Cena kicked out, and they end up outside, and Cena rolls outside after getting hit by the finish, and Truth goes over and he finds a little Jimmy, and he takes the kid's hat and he takes the kid's drink, and he puts the hat on and he starts drinking the drink, and the kid's just kind of looking at him, and finally the kid grabs a drink and he throws it in Truth's face. And the moment this happens, everybody pops. Cena grabs him, throws him in the ring, still wearing the hat, mind you. Hoists him up, F-U, 1, 2, 3. I thought that was a great poetic justice finish for this particular match. And other than that, it was a Raw match. It was nothing special. Truth's first big main event. And quite frankly, I don't even know if you can really blame him because he's essentially going to do what he's told. But, he went for a lot of covers. He did a lot of moves. But when I look at this championship match and then I look at the Orton Christian championship match, it's like, why the fuck did this go on last? I realize it's John Cena, but, I mean, seriously, no one in the back thought, which one of these matches is going to be about 10 times better than the other match? So anyway, I'm just not into this.
Yeah, I thought the match was really boring. I mean, it just sort of dragged on, and Truth was sort of beating on Cena, but it wasn't particularly fast paced, and he wasn't really doing anything that made you think that the finish was coming. And, then Cena did a little bit of a comeback, and then they went to the finish with the drink at the bottom. I thought the match just didn't click, and was quite a letdown at the end of the pay-per-view. So I wasn't a fan of the match at all.
Tomorrow is Raw. It is another 3-hour show. It is the People's Choice Raw. And actually, let's go up right now and find out if they've put anything on WWE.com, because I know as of about 9:30 p.m. Pacific, which would have been 12:30 a.m. Eastern, there was nothing up there. So let's find out here. Raw. What do you think, Todd? What are the Todd's odds there's anything on there?
Well, I'm actually looking right now.
So we're having a battle. Who can find it first? Let's see what they've got on.
Yeah, there doesn't appear to be anything in the main stories.
Nothing. I do like how there is a countdown clock to capital punishment, and it says 0 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds till the show. That's nice. So, I guess tomorrow it's Viewer's Choice Raw. You got to tune in, because if you don't, you're not going to know what to vote on. And, as Dave mentioned, these poor bastards on the writing team. Think about this. They had Raw last week, which was 3 hours. Then they had to write a 2-hour SmackDown. Then they had a 3-hour pay-per-view tonight, and they've got a 3-hour Raw tomorrow. And not only is tomorrow a 3-hour Raw, but it's a 3-hour Raw where they've got to write like 3 times as much, because they've got to have an answer to everything that the fans vote for. Unless they do a bunch of stuff like, would you rather see John Cena and Truth in a street fight, a straight match, or a verbal debate? This is pretty obvious which one they're going to choose there. So, anyway, that's tomorrow. It's Cyber Sunday. And it's 3 hours, so there you go. How's that for a preview?
There you go.
That's right.
I'm excited. I mean, I wish we were on right now.
Todd, when you get excited, the world knows. And you don't sound excited right now. Let's not lie.